Glen Howie, Arkansas State Broadband Director. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate you taking some time to sit down in a booth at Clyde's with me.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ben, to you and the Ready team for having me and having the other folks here for really what is really a critical conversation the day after a new policy notice comes out for a program. You guys have done a tremendous job and helping to lead states in this process. We can't thank you enough.
I was wondering if we could go through some of the not only the mindset kind of distinctions that your office has that have allowed you to be successful in this space, but also some of the practical decisions that you've made over the past 4 years that have allowed the practical decisions that you've made over the past few years that have allowed the Arkansas State Broadband Office to flourish and be really one of the states that is kind of running the ball down the field, really leading the pack. You're among those that are doing things a little bit different, and the results speak for themselves, I think.
We leaned in heavily to every option we had available to us to make it more competitive and drive interest from the business community. So whether that was leaning all the way in on fixed amount subawards, the waivers available to us to drive down the letter of credit or performance bond requirement down to 10%, designing our project areas, our jigsaw puzzle pieces, as we call them, into the CBG units, and allowing for providers to design their projects in whatever way that made sense for them, because they know where their facilities are. They know what the financial modeling indicates for them. So designing a process from A to Z, everything that we did was how can we drive competition and have competition in Arkansas? And you look at the results, it worked very well. We had, again, concluded our original process April 23rd, on schedule to be turned in 3 months ahead of time. We had first of all, we had 48 pre-registrants from around the country, ISPs and partnerships, 29 in-state, 19 out-of-state. Ultimately, through the 3 rounds of competitive bidding, we had 2,700 applications across 44 different providers. Out of that, we were able to cover 99% of our state's eligible locations in the program for only 57% of our budget. And what does that look like from a technology standpoint? We had 89% of our locations covered with fiber projects, 100% fiber to the home projects, another 11% of our locations with a mix of other technologies, from cable, fixed wireless, LEO satellite as well. So a good mix. We had an average cost per location right at $7,000. 95% of our locations were an average cost of $4,000 or less, right? So what am I saying here? I'm saying that also, which I think is probably the best statistic we have in this whole thing, again, under the previous rule set, was that in Arkansas, we received an average of 5.3 applications per location, right? 5.3 applications per location in the state. So the process worked, right?
Yeah.
It was, we worked really hard, not only our team, our support team, our providers, right? And our stakeholders across the state. Not only do we do that weekly TA that we've done for 10 months, we also have one every other week that we do for our statewide stakeholders across state government, nonprofits, business community, et cetera, that also come to the table. We take pride in being one of the most transparent and open offices in the country. We're proud of that. So I think, every state has done a good job in this process because our states are unique and we have different needs and wants and different policies depending upon where you are across the country. If there was anything, I would say, hey, what's made the magic sauce, right, in Arkansas? It's been making decisions based on driving competition and being as openly transparent as possible.
So there are 2 things I want to branch off of that from. The first one is that it is encouraging to see that states, I just had an opportunity to speak with Brian Allenby from the Maine Connectivity Authority, and he similarly emphasized the role that public comment and that transparency is still going to play, despite the fact that a lot of those, like the federal regulation in the guidance is actually not going to be as stringent. It's not going to be as enforced. It indeed will likely play a much more minor role, if it plays a role at all. So it is encouraging to see that states are still, Arkansas and Maine included in this, are still prioritizing hearing from the communities that they're going to serve, because ultimately that's still going to be what gets people served the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, even though that is not a it will not be a prerequisite right under the new guidance. I think that doesn't take the burden off of me in our chair and our team in Arkansas. We've hit the road. We've been to every county multiple times. We've town halls about broadband, listened to the folks. When I go on the road, I always tell our folks, your communities and your barriers and the potential solutions to those barriers better than I do sitting in a chair in Little Rock, right? And so the same can be said for Washington. We know our states better than someone sitting in a chair in D.C., right? And so, again, even though stakeholder engagement may not be a prerequisite for what we're going to do, it's still top of mind for us. We're still going to execute on that because ultimately, the residents of our state deserve that.
The part that I want to circle back to, and you said this during a session today, and it's a simple thing, and lots of people have said it, but I think repeating it is important. And you said, who am I to tell markets what works?
That's right.
And I think that's sage advice, or at least sage insight here. And can you expound on that a little bit, like what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, sure. So an example of that in our program is that we let the free market determine in the original set, right? We allowed the free market to determine which technology was right for which location, right, at a reasonable cost to the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. Let the market drive the outcomes. Let the market tell us what it is. So, and that's our perspective. We don't necessarily think that we don't necessarily think that you're going to get the best outcome from a benefit of the taxpayer, right? Mm-hmm. For instance, to come in and be heavy-handed from a top-down approach, mm-hmm. and take it upon the office to declare which locations are supposed to be high cost, mm-hmm. or which location's this or which location's that, right? Go to the market and let the market do its thing, let the market work. And so, mm-hmm. because the market will tell you, again, the providers know their facilities, they know their capabilities, they know what it's going to take to get to certain locations and what it can't take and what it can take. And let them do that. Let them compete in a mm-hmm. highly competitive environment. And again, let the market drive the program. That process will naturally flush out mm-hmm. which locations are more expensive, right? Because it's all relative to what a provider can and can't do. It's not that any one location is in and of itself high cost mm-hmm. or more expensive. It's only that way because of the market forces. Mm-hmm. And so let the market tell you the location for the technology at the right price, and that process naturally flushes out due to the market what locations are more expensive, mm-hmm. right? And you're able to satisfy that other ways. And so that's the approach we've taken. It worked the first time. We're excited about the new guidance. We have finality. We know how we can move forward. We have 70-ish days from today to get this thing done. And again, we had a great program under the old rules. We're going to have a great program with the new rules.
So walk me through this, because the word NOFO was repeated on last Thursday for the first time, and everyone kind of swiveled in their chairs, and there was a record scratch, and I was like, what? And then Friday, as you said, like there's a bit of finality. We actually were able to hold the 24 pages in our hands. Sure. And now today we've had the benefit of sitting in a room with lots of smart people.
Absolutely.
And I imagine
much smarter than I. Smarter than I.
And I imagine that like perspectives have changed. So,
mm-hmm.
like maybe not considerably, but sure. like there's been an element of on Thursday people were understandably very concerned.
Sure.
Friday, I think some concerns were assuaged, others mm-hmm. were perhaps amplified.
Sure.
And now I think cooler heads, dust is beginning to settle. We're approaching that like a calm disposition. I'm curious what how your perspective has changed over the
mm-hmm.
past 2 weeks, where you started and where you are now.
Well, really, I mean, it's been a process the last several months in that nearly every day since January, every day it was, well, something's going to change. This is going to come out. You get texts, you get phone calls, you get emails, you get whispers and conversations, and everyone has an insider right? Everyone has someone who knows something, or someone's cousin's nephew's barber's sister has heard something, or knows someone else who knows. I mean, and it's amazing how fast things travel. I mentioned this in Nashville last week. You hear people who shouldn't be talking at all. You hear, and it goes so fast, right? You get it from both sides, and really. And I said this in Nashville last week. I was done with the rumors.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care. It comes out when it comes out, and I'm not talking about it anymore. Right. Because it was just different things and what was happening and this stuff, and it was just too much. So.
But rumors can be so fun.
It's super interesting. Yes. Yes. You hear things, you're like, what? But no, it finally came out, and so I think, honestly, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, across the range of the spectrum of what could have dropped, this is workable. I think human beings are necessarily want to avoid change, right? That's who we are as people, and generally, not everyone, but generally, we resist change for the most part, and so any change was going to drive a shock, really, right, to the states and to the industry and to stakeholders and around Washington. And that's okay, because that's natural. But it's been a couple of days, right? We've digested it. I think, on Friday it came out, I think around 1 o'clock-ish.
Yeah, around
1:15 Central Time. It came out. That evening I sent out a message to our stakeholders, and then a different message that was more private to our providers. And, my goal this past whole week has been, it's going to be okay, right? Stay in the boat with us. It's been a long journey. We're almost there. Just stay with us, because we're very close. We have 70 days left. And the program didn't end on Friday, right? It adjusted. And so we're going to adjust. And that's okay. We're going to adjust quickly. We're going to work to protect the integrity and structure of our nationally leading program in Arkansas. And we're still going to deliver one of the best programs in the country. That's our goal. Our mission hasn't changed. Yes, we got a little bit of a curveball, right? But everyone's in the same boat. And we're going to get it done. It's going to be okay.
Now, I certainly appreciate the perspective. I've heard it said, that this was the worst case scenario. I appreciate that perspective. I understand, why some people feel that way.
Sure.
But the BEAD still exists.
That's right.
Which is, and I remember we discussed this months ago when we kind of solicited your opinion on like what you thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And you were very careful not to opine too much, but you said, BEAD isn't going anywhere. That was very much the perspective I think that you were sharing. And it's nice to know that even though state directors have been handed a huge curveball, and it is something that they will have to weather, and they will weather, but BEAD is still here. We're gonna find our way through it.
Yeah.
And I think Arkansas is in very good hands. With you at the helm there. Now, I know that you've earned this moniker, the Minister of Calm, and certainly, for those of you at home who can't tell, the man sitting across from me is exuding calmness, and I don't know if that's something that you can really radiate, but it is. But it
is now, I guess.
Sitting in the room with you, hearing you up on stage. There's no helter skelter. There's no the sky is falling. It's very measured. It's very it's soothing. I think people feel better after hearing you walk through these things, because you're able to approach it in a very measured, tempered fashion.
Sure. And
I know that that's served you well. It's served the state well. Served your office well. And I'm curious if you can just speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think it's sort of a moniker that's sort of permeated the office a little bit, and kind of a running joke now. But I appreciate that, and I understand the perspective. I mean, there's a lot at stake here, right? You've had, tens of millions of dollars expended by when you combine state offices and the investment that providers have had to make in preparing for this program and applying in this program across the country, and manufacturers and industry that have spent tens of millions of dollars getting ready for the BEAD program, and the workforce folks, and everyone is invested and put a lot into this over the last 3 years, right? So there's a lot of angst and a lot of worry, and that's normal and to be expected, right? Because people don't like change a whole lot.
Yeah.
Right. It's a human being characteristic that permeates a lot of life, is that people, frankly, just don't like change. And so anything that came down on Friday was going to input a shock somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And my message, again, kind of all along, even back in the time in the Louisiana office and now in Arkansas, right, is that just my philosophy on things, very deliberative, very thoughtful. Let's analyze. Let's come up with 3 or 4 options and take our time and evaluate things. And there's pros and cons to that, right? Sometimes we're not going to be like the first state out of the gate a lot of times, because I want to be more a little introspective and evaluate it, a little more than others, and that's okay. There's pros and cons to different ways of doing things, I think. But it's going to be okay. We're going to make it. I said before, the program didn't end last Friday. It adjusted. Yeah. And so we're going to adjust and move forward. Our number one job my number one job the last week or so has been trying to keep all of our providers in the boat, and because we're going to move forward, we're going to find a way. There is a way. Again, we're excited because we think that we have finality. We have notice that came out on Friday. It's updated. And, I fully appreciate and understand what the administration wants to do. They want to reduce bureaucracy, cut red tape, lower the expense to the taxpayer, which we should all want to do, frankly, right? Those are good intentions in any government program. Yep. And so we're excited. We have finality. We've got 70 days to get it done. We had one of the best BEAD programs in the country under the old rules. We're going to have one of the best programs under the new rules, and we're going to get it done. So we're going to keep our heads down. We're going to work hard. We're going to move forward, and it's going to be okay.
I want to talk about intention. This, not to beat a dead horse, but this was a curveball.
Sure.
And people are rolling with it now, and there's a lot of chatter, but I am curious what your perspective is on what you think this guidance says about this administration's goals and priorities, and how you think that those are, what that means for the state of Arkansas. Yeah.
No, again, it's very clear. The administration wants to, at least to the BEAD program, right? Its goal is to reduce the bureaucracy, cut down on time, cut red tape, hopefully lower the cost to taxpayers at the end of this thing. And as the Secretary said, the benefit of the bargain. Secretary Lutnick's been saying that for a while now, right? And it's in the policy notice. All the states have to run a benefit of the bargain, one extra grant round, right, to help drive down costs. And so, I completely understand the place that they're coming from. They also, I'm sure you've covered it, maybe with other folks. They've taken out a lot of Biden era policies that perhaps were not necessarily in statute, but were inserted for one reason or another, and that's perfectly fine. Right, it's perfectly fine too. For us, really, in Arkansas, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It all depends upon, again, who stays in the boat.
Yeah.
Who else joins us in the boat as we drive forward on this thing. Again, I think regardless of the old rules or the new rules, the two things that I always return to, which are key for, in my opinion, having a leading program, at least in the way this one is designed, is driving as much competition as possible, doing everything you can do to drive as many participants to the table, and eliminating barriers for folks so that can become a reality, and being as openly transparent as possible. You do those two things, you're going to have a good program.
Glen Howie, Minister of Comm and Arkansas State Broadband Director, thank you very much for the time that you've given me this afternoon. Really appreciate you coming here, assuaging, I think, some concerns, bringing that sense of calm. Can't say enough how much I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to come sit with me here in a booth at Clyde's.
Hey, no worries, Ben. Thank you. Thank you to the Ready team. You guys do a tremendous job. You've supported us, right, in the program, and couldn't ask for a better support team to help us along with this process. Y'all have been tremendous, and like I said, we have 70 days. We're gonna get it done.